As many of you know, I'm a regular Canon user, but I was fortunate enough to borrow this, the A7iii, from fellow YouTubers and tech reviewers Rudy Visuals, and having played around with it for both photos and videos, I break down my 10 reasons as a Canon user why you might want to pick up a Sony A7iii in 2022. Okay, so I've mentioned it several times already. I'm a seasoned Canon user, and a lot of these points are going to be slightly biased towards my viewpoints as shaped from using Canon cameras and what personally interests me with the Sony A7iii. And I appreciate that pro Sony users will probably have stacks more detailed points, but if you're coming from Canon and you're thinking about getting a Sony camera, particularly the A7iii, then this is probably the right video for you. So point number one on the list for me is going to have to be the full frame sensor, that 24 megapixel full frame sensor. And if you're coming from an APS-C or smaller sensor camera, then you are definitely going to love the image quality that comes out of the A7iii. And after using the A7iii and checking out the photo quality, the HD and 4K filming, they were simply incredible. Also, I'm personally a big fan of Sony's colors, and I love the cinematic look and feel that you can create. Point two is the great low light performance and the fact that it works very well at higher ISO values without adding in too much grain. Again, this comes down a lot to the full frame sensor, and it's easy to get good quality pictures and video in low light. And this makes it great for things like weddings and event videos, particularly when you have to shoot inside, like in old churches or poorly lit conference rooms. The movie mode features are our third point, and I think that one of the things that always frustrated me about the older Canon full frames was the lower frame rates. For the A7iii, you can shoot 120 frames per second at 1080. This is something that I always coveted for my wedding films, but I could only go up to 60 frames per second in 1080 on my Canon 5D Mark IV and EOS R. But also on the Sony A7iii, you can shoot 4K at up to 30 frames per second with no crop factor. On my Canon 5D Mark IV and EOS R cameras, you do get a crop of 1.74 times when shooting in 4K, which makes it really difficult to use unless you have a super wide lens, which is what I had to invest in eventually. Another bonus point when it comes to filming, and point 4 on our list, are the Sony log filming options. As you may or may not know, log basically extends the dynamic range of your video footage, retaining the details in the highlights and the shadows, allowing you to better color grade your creation in post-production. And this was something that I had to pay to get installed on my Canon 5D Mark IV, but comes as standard on the Sony A7iii. One thing that did stand out to me though was the minimum ISO value jumps up to 800 with those options on, so shooting in bright sunlight might be quite tricky. You will definitely need to invest in some ND filters if you don't own them already. Also, a little FYI, the S-Log is 8-bit, but still very much usable for your YouTube and travel videos. Point 5 on the list is the IBIS, the in-body image stabilization, something that both the 5D Mark IV and EOS R lack, but this functionality is present in the newer Canon R5, R6 and R3 cameras. And of course, IBIS really enhances your ability to shoot still images at lower shutter speeds, and it also helps to reduce camera shake while shooting video handheld. I tried it while I was out and about, and it works pretty well with a little warp stabilizer added in post-production. Point 6 is the autofocus system. Now this works with the tap of a button to help the camera look for and lock onto an eye for photos and videos. Now I am a massive fan of dual pixel autofocus in the Canon cameras. In comparison to the newer R series cameras, the A7iii is a little slow and not as accurate, but not bad at all for a camera that's going to be 4 years old this year. Our 7th point is the size, portability, and fact that it has a weather-sealed body. The size and portability are definitely factors to consider. The A7iii body weighs in at 650 grams, and I would have appreciated having one of these a few years ago when I was traveling around the world shooting and filming events. I had to lug 2 5D Mark IV cameras along with me on planes and trains and taxis and through different airports and customs, and then using them on 12 to 16-hour event days, they really became like solid weights in my hand. Also, that weather-sealed body is great for extra peace of mind, especially if you're out on a shoot and the heavens decide to open up. Just make sure that your attached lens also benefits from having that weather-sealed feature. Customized buttons are our 8th point on the list. Allowing you to quickly assign different functions to your C1, C2 and C3 buttons means that you can quickly adjust what you need to depending on your current shooting circumstances or you can set preferences if you're primarily shooting video or photo. Dual card slots is point number 9 on our list, and an extremely important point at that. Again, having extra peace of mind when shooting, having extra storage, and actually this is one of the biggest complaints that people have with the Canon EOS R, that it only has a 1 card slot, something that Canon has addressed in all their recent Canon R cameras. Our final point is battery life. Now, when I borrowed this camera, I was surprised when Aaron only gave me 1 battery. In fact, I lent him my EOS R at the same time, and I made sure that he had 2 batteries because I know that 1 will not last more than half a day of use. But after using the A7 III, I realized why he only gave me 1 battery, and that is because the battery literally keeps on going. I used it extensively for photos and videos while testing it out, and it just kept on going. Having used the Canon R, R6 and R5 cameras, I never leave the house unless I have at least 3 or 4 extra batteries. But with the Sony A7 III battery life marked at around 700 shots, you can rest assured that you won't need any more than a couple of batteries with you on a long shoot day. And if you're looking for a Sony A7 III, you can pick one up new on Amazon for around $2,000, depending on what accessories or lenses you get. On the UK store, they're going for about £1,700. Again, if you get a lens, it might be a little bit more. And secondhand on eBay, you'll be looking to spend anywhere between $1,200 upwards, again, depending on conditions and anything you might get with it. And on the UK store, anywhere between £1,200 and £1,800, again, depending on the condition and any accessories. And this is a great place to mention that if you haven't done so already, go and add yourself to the KaiCreative Facebook and Instagram accounts to stay up to date with all of our creative happenings. So during my time with the A7 III, there were plenty of positive points, but as a Canon user, I also came across a few pain points. First up was that the screen only tilts up slightly, but there's no flip out or fully articulating screen option. This was one of my pet peeves for the 5D Mark IV, and the reason why I love the EOS R. It really makes things easier when you want to vlog or make talking heads videos or YouTube videos, and also you can't flip the screen over to protect it from scratches. The LCD part is always exposed and facing out. The screen is also described as being touchscreen, but this is mainly for the focusing system and not for the menus, and it took me a while to figure that out. In fact, I had to phone up Aaron and ask him why the menu screen didn't work with the tap function. In addition to this, I thought the autofocusing system was good, but not as good as the dual pixel autofocusing system of the Canon cameras. Another thing that I found fiddly and slightly confusing was the menu system overall, but that's probably down to the fact that I've been using the Canon menu setup for years, which I've become very accustomed to. But saying all of that, the Sony A7 III is going to be hitting 4 years old this year, so we can't complain too much. In fact, in that period of time, lots of people have gravitated towards this camera. YouTubers love it for image quality and eye autofocus, although it would benefit more from having a flip out screen. All types of photographers are attracted to this camera: portrait, landscape, sports photographers, they all use this camera. And thanks to those video options, all types of video producers use it as well. Travel filmmakers, wedding videographers, and corporate video producers. It's a great all-round content creator's camera, and as a Canon user using it for the first time, I'm definitely impressed. The reason that I stayed with Canon initially and never ventured into using Sony cameras was because I was doing a lot of event filming and interview filming with the 5D Mark IV, and at the same time there was a lot of talk about these Sony cameras overheating. So I stuck with what I knew to be reliable for the work that I was doing. However, for a lot of the type of work I do now, where it's more social content creation as opposed to several hours of long form event filming, the look and feel of the Sony is definitely more appealing. I think that if I was a full-time content creator back in 2018, I would definitely have been using the Sony A7 III as my camera of choice. And also, it's definitely made me consider future Sony cameras as possible options in my creative journey. So those are my thoughts on the Sony A7 III. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts and experiences down in the comment section below. Also, if you found today's video useful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the little bell for notifications. So that's it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. All that I have left to say is stay creative, stay safe, imagine, implement, and inspire, and I will see you next time on KaiCreative.